Hey there everyone, Rob here from the Better SMB podcast. This episode we revisit one of the original topics we ever covered, economic reports, and really question who are they really for once again. Certainly not the SMB owners and leaders we know. Anyway, before we go on, remember, hit that like button, the follow button, do all the things you can do to support our goal to help every SMB owner and leader around New Zealand to become better leaders. The more help, the more we can put effort into becoming an awesome podcast for you. Thanks for listening. On with the show.
Welcome back to the Better SMB. We're working to become the go-to voice for SMB leaders looking to create high-performing and sustainable businesses. I'm David Alterner.
And I'm Rob Bull.
Last July, Rob and I took a look at some of the reports that are available for SMB leaders with a view to seeing how useful they are on a day-to-day basis. We spent some time looking at research completed by the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research for ASB and Spark, along with a Xero Small Business Insights report, the BNZ Manufacturing Snapshot, and an OECD Economic Survey on New Zealand. The episode remains one of our most listened to, and we came away from that noting that, really reports are too complex. They're not that useful for SMB leaders, and they use plenty of technical jargon. A one-pager infographic with 3 or 4 concrete steps would be more useful. Creating businesses that are learning organisations that improve leaders and leadership are crucial for lifting business performance, and additionally, businesses need to focus on developing people as a part of creating a culture of continuous learning that supports innovation. Interestingly, Rob and I were also contacted by one of the Xero marketing team, shout out to Xero, and we thought that could be a start and a way to form some kind of ongoing collaboration. Unfortunately, that person moved roles, and where that would have sat in the business, it's no longer a priority for them. So it'd be great to hear from someone from Xero if they'd like to kick that conversation off again. Now, while we're not quite 12 months on from then, we are actually 12 months on from when most of those reports were released. And we were curious to see what, if anything, has come out over the last year to support the SMB community to lift performance from government and other organisations. So I've done some digging, and actually there's not a lot. Oh, well, if we exclude how Gen AI is apparently going to add 102 billion to our economy annually by 2038. But as Anthony McMahon said on our tech episode, there's quite a bit that most businesses need to do before Gen AI becomes that magic silver bullet. In my research for this episode, Rob, I found some info from Stats NZ. It's from May last year, but I thought it could be a good place to start. So did you know that in the year that ended March 2024, so April 23 to March 24, our labour productivity fell 0.7%, multi-factor productivity fell 0.9%, and capital productivity was down 1.3%. And since 1996, our primary industries workers are producing 72% more goods and services per hour. Measured sector service industry workers are doing 46.2% more goods and services per hour, and good producing industries are doing 14.5% more hour. I actually think I want to vomit a little, because this is telling me we don't really have a good way to even talk about this subject in a way that a typical business person can understand. And what info we do have, it's over 12 months old. Yet, according to the Treasury, this is our number one economic challenge. So my question's about Statistics NZ. In their statement of strategic intentions for 2023 to 2028, they outline a vision and purpose. Interestingly enough, at 2025, we're right in the middle of that. So their vision is that data and statistics Their vision is data and statistics that improve lives today and for generations to come, to ensure that high quality, impartial and objective data and official statistics are produced relating to New Zealand to inform the public and inform decision making. Rob, Stats NZ says their role is to deliver data that improves lives today and for future generations. But when our number one economic challenge is productivity, and the most recent data is already a year old, are they really delivering anything of value for SMBs trying to make decisions today?
Holy crap. What a load of absolute BS. Where do I start? 12 months on, as you said, we looked at all of these reports, and it was one of our first episodes, and thankfully a lot of people have listened to it. And where do I start? Right, let's go back. Stats NZ, what role do they have? They are the receiver. They're the receiver of lag measures of all the little bits of hard work that Mr. and Mrs. business owner, large enterprises, everything that creates a GDP in New Zealand, they're the receiver of stats. I don't know how numbers are supposed to influence any of our SMB owners out there in New Zealand. And it was quite funny. Listeners of the podcast won't be able to see your face when we're recording this. But even when you're reading those stats, and you're a very intelligent man, you were grimacing. While that was happening, I was thinking, if a stat, just everyday business owner, general manager, ops manager had to read those stats, I would ask them, what does that mean? 95%, I'll give 5% some generous out there, but 95% of people will hear those stats and go, makes no sense to me. So Stats New Zealand, the role that you've got to play is normalising and humanising and simplifying that message. That's your only message. And it is trying to translate the lag measures that you're receiving and telling us if we're on track or off track. That's their only role. They cannot influence what happens before them. So how they have a role to play in lifting business performance, because I'm going to go straight there. This is all about business performance. We've spent 12 months talking about this. You cannot improve productivity by measuring and coming up with numbers. We've got to improve productivity by improving our business performance. So there's going to be a big hint to where I'm going on this episode. You talked about Anthony using AI and technology. Go back to that episode and listen to that, because he was absolutely right. Technology, which is all through the last 12 months worth of reports on all our banking institutions, they all talk about technology somehow becoming a savior of the world. But it's actually an enabler, not a solution. Because I think if you go back to Anthony's episode, he will talk about all that hard work that you've got to prepare and understand your human processes to look at where you're going to use that in that intelligent use of technology. And more recently, on our more recent episodes, Dave Bunting from AGP, he talks about data to inform how he goes out on the workshop floor to actually improve the team's performance, to go and problem solve. Data itself isn't the solution. It's just a trigger to go back and see where the problems are.
And with
That's
Dave,
the only role that Stats New Zealand has and should have. Keep your fingers out of that pie.
Yeah. And even with Dave, like the technologist in me was dying to talk to him about what tech he had for all this data and so forth. And then he said, we go out there with a stopwatch and a clipboard and a pen.
Yep. Keeping it simple.
And given how long it takes Stats NZ to get their data out, I wonder if they're doing that with an abacus and a piece of paper and a pen.
But can you imagine the report? Like, we observed a staff member going up and down a production line 14 times, and it took him 20 seconds per time on average, with a statistical range of 18 seconds to 23. Could you imagine the report that took 10 pages to say that, and how complex and all the graphs that they would have presented? Whereas it's just more of, yeah, he did his job and his quality was on. Keeping it simple.
Yep.
And so far, none of these approaches, none of these reports, none of these documents are simple. They're not using common, plain language and just making it useful that a business owner like myself, like you, like all the teams I meet with, they can read a summary and go, now I know what to do. Until one of those writes those reports. And Zero, like you pointed out, they came back to us last year after we poked that bear, and they showed us some of the other reports, which is a follow-on to their overarching report, and going, this is how we break it down and make suggestions to business owners. And that's great. They're the ones who are probably the closest. Certainly not any of the banking industry, certainly not Stats New Zealand. And then we get into your friends MB and MFAT.
Oh, poking that bear already. So we've looked at Stats NZ. Their reporting, it's really disconnected from the day-to-day realities of running a business. Like, hey, 2 years ago, you still sucked at productivity.
20 years ago, we still sucked.
They may as well just say we still suck. That's what their report can say, right?
The most efficient way that they can update us with the reports is buy a $20 stamp with repeat and stamp last year's report, the year before that, and just go press repeat, done. Nothing's changing.
Yeah. So they're not the only agency tasked with helping us understand and improve productivity. So this is where we enter MB, the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. Their name alone should make them a central player in solving our productivity problem, you'd think. So late last year, MB released a consultation paper called New Zealand's Future Productivity to 2050. It's meant to be part of a long-term insights briefing, exploring how global trends, domestic factors, and strategic choices might shape our... Are you still awake, Rob?
Yeah.
Might shape our
going.
future.
I'll pinch myself to stay awake.
Yeah, so it sounds promising on the surface. But when you dig into it, you kind of start to wonder, are they actually trying to lead real change? Or are they just compiling another nice-looking document that sits on a digital shelf?
Well, they've got a really big shoes to fill because their whole role has changed over the last 12 months, certainly with the demise of Callaghan and also the demise of the New Zealand Productivity Commission. So if the New Zealand Productivity Commission couldn't live through all of these changes, how are they going to approach this? That will be really interesting.
Well, they diagnose heaps of issues: low capital intensity, underinvestment in research and development. Oh, let's close all the Crown Research Institutes and put that on hold for a couple of years.
And lose all that talent.
Yep, the fact we've got poor international connectivity and weak competition and low tech exports. So they admit New Zealand's productivity has lagged since the 70s and still hasn't caught up. So if the problems are that well known, that well documented, Stats NZ are telling us it was still a problem 2 years ago, why are we still asking the same questions in 2025?
Because there's egos involved and people have got flash new rules or ideas. They have different lords to serve on in the beehive. And I say this carefully because we might have a guest from that building soon. So I don't want to ruffle too many feathers around that one. But there's too many shiny new things that are actually avoiding, I believe, a couple of really simple issues in New Zealand business. And we've talked about it for the last 12 months on this podcast. If you broke down all our episodes, we're not saying anything different.
Yeah, well, I mean, their paper, it talks about possible strategic choices, more investment in...
Tell me. Come on, David. What does possible strategic choices, what does that actually mean?
Well, hey, possible implies that it's an option, right? So an option means you might or might not.
Yeah.
So we might or might not invest more in innovation. We might or might not get some better international trade links, so on. But it's really vague on how we're actually going to get there.
Okay, this is another reaction to all of that. You talked about trade links. And then we're going to go to MFAT as well under all of this banner, because their title is Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. We are talking about New Zealand's productivity. Now, I'm going to try and explain this like a 5-year-old, and please correct me. Productivity is the output of workers in New Zealand and businesses in New Zealand producing goods and services, and particularly goods if it's going overseas. And that goods could be paperless, i.e. technology and programming and software and all of that kind of stuff, but also hard goods like we're traditionally known for. How is foreign affairs improving what happens on New Zealand's shores? Because that's home-based. Yes, trade, opening up, but we've got nothing to trade if we can't produce anything. So what is their role? They're like Stats New Zealand. They've got to stay away and say, look, we can open the doors when you're effectively producing something consistently at a high quality that the rest of the world wants. But until we can lift up that business performance and actually start delivering, do they have a role? No.
Yeah, well, there's nothing specific in this for SMBs. There's no hard recommendations. There's no urgency. It's a consultation paper. Here's a thing that you should think about so we can write another one.
A consultation paper on a topic that they've just acknowledged has been going on for 50 years. Why consult? It's crazy. I just think with all the changes, I definitely understand that there has been a whole lot of scope creep over the certainly since COVID, particularly with the support and funding that needs to be rebalanced. And I get that, and that's one of the big fundamental rationales for all the changes that have happened with Callaghan and MBIE, and can on the surface of it look at it as shifting deck chairs. As you said, that there's no hard recommendations. So what's their productivity to actually get some results? But we won't go there just yet.
The top line on the productivity calculation is what do you produce? If we look at what MBIE is producing, their role is to drive business and innovation outcomes. But, the thing they're producing is a consultation paper every few years. Is that enough? Should we be expecting more actionable guidance, support programs, leadership? If their jobs supporting business, innovation, and employment, as the name suggests, is that report a catalyst for progress, helping create that spark that we kind of need? Or is it just a PR exercise for a department that's kind of not on the field?
I go back to some of my old stamping grounds. You look at Health New Zealand, they've had a major rehaul, and there are a lot of senior roles that have gone because of non-performance. And that's because health is a very emotive and very in-our-face outcome, right? Can we get the services we need? Are they available? Geographically, are they accessible? And all of those kind of things. And with the poor performance over the years of Health New Zealand, or ex-DHBs, changes were made, and some people have now moved on. MBIE is a little bit of a different one because it's kind of hidden. Yes, they're in the spotlight and they're talked about, but it doesn't touch or immediately touch every New Zealander, or at least the connection is just at one step removed. So they can and are getting away with absolute BS reports that are absolutely useless. They should have advisory panels for every sector, and they still do, and they still talk to them. But what are they actually producing that, as you said, gives clear direction or clear advice to SMBs around New Zealand to what their role is in lifting productivity? But there's none.
No.
Zero.
With a Z in this case.
Yeah.
Now, I want to be clear, right? We're not blaming government and government department. This is more about clarifying what real support looks like and making a clear ask. And I think our business community has been kind of really guilty of this. And this was what I one of my underlying hypotheses were when I did my research. So we've kind of sat back and gone, well, we'll just wait for the government, which is well known for its ability to handle money and achieve things, to do something to help us all.
Yeah.
And we've all
And
sat on our hands. So now
Yep.
we've looked at what Stats NZ, MB, and MFAT are or aren't doing to help tackle New Zealand's biggest economic challenge. But let's be honest, we've been waiting for 50 years. So waiting for a government-led solution isn't working out so good for us. So perhaps it's time we stop asking for better reports and start asking for something else entirely. And in a few episodes, when we have that person on, it would be actually quite good to get that minister's opinion on that and what they're hearing from the ground. But let's put the challenge out there. As a business community, what do we actually want? What would meaningful support look like for the 100,000 businesses that I talk about that need to start taking action? Right? What would that support look like that would actually drive our economy forward? I mean, you talk to business owners every week. If someone from MB or Stats NZ rang you tomorrow and said, hey, what are your top 3 ideas to actually help SMBs lift productivity, what are you going to say?
First one, by a country mile, supporting the development of leadership capability in SMBs around New Zealand. Full stop. Supporting, lifting the standard of training, knowledge that goes into our SMB leadership. This is why we don't have owners who know how to write a plan. We've talked about that over the last 12 months. Came clear, really clear with Dave Bunting's episode around setting standards and being disciplined and hardened around that and keeping that. He's a unicorn in all of the sea of business owners and leaders in New Zealand. Don't have that. So
the number of times I heard him say, it's not sexy, it's actually a bit boring.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we don't have capability, yet you turn around and look at all the other sexy solutions like AI technology and all of that, we don't have the capability to actually plan that out and understand and integrate that and innovate with that at our business level. So that is why I'm going to die on this hill debating it for a long, long time. We need to lift up that capability. And unfortunately, that support and funding has gone, 100% gone. Callaghan's gone. What MB still has is totally underfunded with the regional business partner network funding. Without that capability, and that's where I do agree with some of the changes that have happened, because we need to narrow that level of support, because we can't support every SMB, but certainly ones that are earning more income and the ecosystem around supporting those exporters. And so that quite a wide, broad horizon out there. But unless we've got really high, excellent skills and knowledge in those leadership, they don't know how to plan. They don't know how to set and maintain standards. They don't know how to develop their people. Then they don't know how to integrate in an intelligent use of technology. I think we only need one. That's my top priority. One thing.
Focus on leadership. And we didn't discuss that being your answer before we pressed record on this. And that's the key theme that came out of my research is leadership.
Yes. Yep.
And investing in soft skills. Imagine if we could get a 20% tax break on investing in leadership education, right? You get what you incentivize. And I think with the government, with the budget, with, hey, here's a 20% tax credit that you can go out and buy a nice shiny new piece of whatever it is that you weren't actually planning to buy anyway. I think that heads us down a wrong path, because it's also saying the machine, the technology, the whatever is going to solve your problem, when actually soft skills, leadership development, learning how to do the basics and doing them well is what's going to get you there.
Yep. And we've talked about that when we've just had our individual episodes, but also all our guests over the last 12 months, which there have been some that have all been awesome. They've all had a focus on that leadership. Even Anthony with his technology focus, it was like, right, no, get the humans factors sorted first, and that takes skills and knowledge. And that goes back to our episode on the EMIS, and we tackled that one directly. It's like we're a bunch of technicians trying to play entrepreneur, but we don't know how to make that jump because we also miss that manager role.
So from that leadership piece, one of the things I'd like to see is this idea of government being able to give us something, or MB in this case, or Stats NZ. Less is more. Imagine if they could drill into the stats and present those in a way to us that was meaningful and sat on one page.
Yep. And I think we're measuring the wrong thing. Productivity is actually, and I've said it in previous episodes, it's a lag measure. It's an outcome of all the hard work that's going on inside a business. We need to focus on quality. We need to focus on maybe the training and the skill sets around that knowledge, because if we work on all of that, productivity will lift.
Totally. And if you get up every day and go running, eventually you will be able to run a half or a full marathon. But there's no point measuring, did I run a marathon today? Because you'll more than likely fail. Yep. Right? And in the case of our economy, it makes it very difficult because the numbers aren't there for 2 years. So as much as I'm kind of being a bit facetious that it takes a while to get these numbers, I appreciate there's a lot that goes into getting them, but presenting them in a more meaningful way and talking about the things that those numbers drive or are driven by, that's what we need, because then that becomes a shared language that we can talk about productivity in, rather than this macro government term and all those stats that I listed off at the start. I mean, it was just total wankery.
100%
I'm not sure if
wankery.
that's a word, but it absolutely was, because to a typical business owner, it actually doesn't mean anything. So if we can create this shared language, and you and I are talking about business performance as a way to kind of start that, then that can help us move ahead.
Yep. What's the percentage of business owners that have completed ABC courses that will lift up their business IQ over the past 12 months? So Stats New Zealand, let's go back to that one. I would really be interested in how they can create a dashboard, that one pager, around lead measures rather than lag measures.
Leadership development, financial awareness, all these types of things that we can look at and go, every new person who's trained to understand finances and financials better is helping us move ahead.
How many have gone on a course, and it could be just an online course, around competency of business planning and execution? What does that look like? What does that mean? That doesn't need to be hugely complex. It could, and as simple as that. So then they can figure out how they've got the competency to create a people development plan, one that might integrate technology at some point. But what's the attendance? How many courses are out there, and are they being utilised? And what's that as a coverage for all our SMB owners? And there should be an incentive to attend some of those courses.
20% seems like a good number. So I agree, Rob. We've got to start incentivizing people to take action and not just investing into something that helps them do dumb shit faster.
Yep.
Right. That 20% tax rebate, it's just going to go on plant and machinery.
Well, plant and machinery useless. In reality, and I love to hear a lot of businesses, is it just going to go into the new car?
It's unplanned spend, right? So we've talked about this idea of planning, and you go, right, I've now got my plan. Here's where I'm going for the next 5 years. These are the key things I'm doing. At some point in those next 5 years, maybe I'm going to buy a new piece of machinery, and I'm going to buy it when these things happen. The government coming along and just dangling this 20% tax rebate in front of people who probably don't have a plan, they're not going to go, oh, well, I'll bring that forward now because I've got a bit of extra capital and I may as well, and that's going to help me do these things. they might just go out and buy that new car, or they might just go out and buy that piece of machinery, but they haven't done the work to actually have that machinery deliver for them.
Or is it the best return on investment? Is that part of the 5-year plan? Oh, hang on, they don't have a plan, so it's a bit of a knee-jerk. We think it's worthwhile, so let's just do it. And field days is coming up, so there's got to be a few specials, right? Great timing from the national government. Throw out that carrot just before field days. You watch all the farmers buying all the toys.
And then all they're going to do is chuck them on the house.
And I'll be really going out there and poking the bear with agriculture and farming being what, 11, 12% of our GDP. We've still got 75, 85% of our GDP. That's not even part of agriculture. We've actually got, as a country, we're moving on. So let's invest in everything else apart from agriculture.
And your favourite, and I know you'll probably get on your high horse with this one, what about a new investment property?
Hey, look, good on you if you're doing that and you're doing that as a retirement fund, but investment properties aren't there bringing in new money, and it's not growing. And I've changed over the last 12 months and having a lot of these discussions and the feedback and talking to a lot of people. Yeah, we need to really use that money smartly. But if you've got a spare and you can buy the beach house in Waihi, go for it. Because I still think that there's a little bit of, and I'm sounding like a hypocrite here now or contradicting myself, but we still need to reward ourselves, but we need to actually understand that success in business in New Zealand, it's like thinking that we've just won the club competition in Waikato for the rugby club competition and thinking that we've just nailed it, when then there's NPC and Super Rugby and International Rugby above us. So we're still playing club rugby when the rest of the world are in Super Rugby or International, certainly up in Europe and Scandinavia, with their business performance - productivity is going. But we're going, oh, we've just won the local club competition. Oh, let's celebrate that and go out and buy ourselves a new car. No, you actually need to invest in your team, develop them more so they can go and play NPC.
Yeah, well, don't settle for the BMW, the batch and the boat and tap out at a level of mediocrity.
Yep.
Actually carry on and play for the win, right?
Yep, absolutely. And that might not be a little subtle dig about my BMW that's sitting outside the office, but hey, we're not picking out on that one, right?
There's a few more B's in that list too, but I won't go there.
Which I don't have, so that's all right. So if I was to wrap all of this up, we've talked about MB, MFAT, Stats New Zealand, creating and regurgitating stats and reports that are telling us something that we didn't know since 1970, and that's been acknowledged. What about the other organisations that we sort of challenged over 12 months ago? And that's Xero. We've talked about them a bit. They're coming to the party probably better than most, but it's still pretty poor. I quickly looked at BNZ, Westpac, ASB, and in the summary of their productivity reports and analysis, we've got BNZ that talk about tax incentives. Again, that's great. That might give us confidence to reinvest in our business and particularly in our capability. We've already said that probably won't happen because there's poor planning and any of the gains that we'll get out of tax incentives will be spent elsewhere. But I don't know how tax incentives equals productivity. Westpac, they talk about, and this is in the productivity document, they talk about higher house prices and lower interest rates. Again, I don't know what a domestic house price has got to do with business performance and productivity. And they talk about the digital divide. So they're tapping into that, oh gosh, technology is going to be our great savior. No, smart utilization through good leadership, knowledge and capability will change our world. There's a few steps like Anthony told us. ASB, talk about growth. Now we need growth for more money to spend, but is growth It might be the cousin of productivity, but is it equal? Is it the same as productivity? My last poke around all of this is actually get real of all of those institutions. Get real when you're talking about productivity. We probably need to get them all around the table and go, what do you mean by this? Is it business performance or is it our GDP output? Because it's quite different and quite different solutions. Now, if you want to increase GDP, your business performance has got to go up. Now, I know in the Hutt Valley, they've got a document called 35 by 35. So as a local region led by the Chamber of Commerce and the Regional Development Agency and all of that, they're wanting to lift up GDP by 35% by year 2035. They're creating smart people around learning from each other. I went down to the Manufacturing Expo recently, and they're starting just to lift up the performance. Let's share knowledge. How did you do this? Oh, we're doing that. That's how you're going to do it.
And that sounds like a compelling vision. Imagine that.
But have you seen any of that stuff out of any of the government agencies like MFAT or any of the banking institutions? No. They still talk about the same stuff that hasn't actually led to any fundamental change since 1970.
But remember, the reports from a lot of these organisations, so we'll move away from the government, reports from these organisations, and I mentioned those AI reports by some of the big global vendors and how they're going to be adding to our GDP and so forth. They're putting those reports out there because it's marketing. You need to invest in the stuff we provide so you can be part of this to go in this direction, right? So they're trying to get you to buy their product. Likewise, with a bank, you're buying their product.
You're paying for shit reports.
Well, those reports are designed to make you think in a direction that's going to make you go, yeah, I'll borrow some money on my house because I haven't got a good business plan and can't get a business loan. And I'll use that to fund my business or whatever.
So the reports are just for the egos of the economists that write it. And I said it 12 months ago, and I'll still stand on that hobby horse.
Totally. But from a business perspective, they're doing those to get people to take action. And the problem is if you have no plan, every shiny thing that tells you it's going to help you do stuff quicker, faster, smarter is a shiny thing that you can use the money the bank just gave you to buy.
Yep. I think after all of this, what I've heard and what I've seen around the country, and I do get around, thankfully, probably the biggest compelling vision is what's happening down in Hutt Valley. They'll do it. I don't see that in any of the other regions in New Zealand. And it's certainly not led, and probably shouldn't be led, to be honest, by central government.
No. Now, if you're listening to this and you've got a clear idea of what would actually help your business make progress, send it through to us. Tag us on LinkedIn, drop us an email. If you've seen something that works, whether it's a tool, a dashboard, or God help us, a government program from another country, share it with us. Wouldn't it be great if we could crowdsource a solution that we all need and we can tell the government this is what we need, now go out there and deliver it for us. We don't need another report to tell us we have a problem. We need a national focus and we need to take action. And that starts with defining what we're asking for. We want skills development. We want meaningful data. We want leadership development, not just strategy papers. Thanks for listening to the Better SMB.